ammunitions as Yamashita treasure markers. As a treasure hunter, I have already encountered a lot of old ammunitions that belonged to the Second World War. They can be pretty annoying, especially when you are metal detecting. Thus, on sites with a lot of scattered ammunitions around, metal detectors can be very unreliable. What's really interesting about ammunitions is that the Japanese Imperial Army also used them as markers on their hidden Yamashita treasures. Basing it on my own personal experiences as a treasure hunter, most ammunition used by the Japanese Imperial Army as markers were buried at shallow depths. The depth only ranges from 12 inches down to 3 feet deep. Aside from being buried, the ammunitions had some kind of arrangement. In one of our projects, we had uncovered a bayonet which belonged to the Japanese Imperial soldiers. Next to the sharp tip of the bayonet were 3 large pieces of ammunitions. They were perfectly aligned, in parallel arrangements, with a distance of 5 inches apart. At first, we were deeply puzzled about interpreting what they mean until we had finally figured it out. The bayonet is actually interpreted as an arrow sign, while the 3 pieces of ammunitions refers to the 3 separate hidden deposits. However, ammunitions used as markers by the Japanese Imperial Army do not always refer to the hidden deposits. They can also be interpreted as directions or distances. The only reason why we managed to interpret the ammunitions that we discovered as 3 hidden deposits was due to the presence of the other marker, which was the knife. So, what if there was no knife? If there was no knife, then the meaning can be different, where the ammunitions are more likely to be interpreted as directions or distances. Assuming that you have uncovered some ammunition as markers on your site, with no other markers or signs around it, what you have to do is to take note of their original positions. If you have a phone with a camera, then you can take a photo or video, which is a much better option. Next is to analyze how they are arranged. They can be arranged in parallel, straight line, circle, triangle, rectangle, and etc. If the ammunitions are arranged in parallel, it most likely refers to the number of distance or depth. So if there are 5 ammos, then it could mean a depth of 5 feet. If they are arranged in a straight line, it is most likely interpreted as distance. On some cases, you can count the number of ammos, and that will be the equivalent distance, which can be in terms of feet, starting from that spot to the hidden spot of the treasure deposit. As for the ammos with circle, triangle, and rectangle arrangements, you have to observe if the tips of their bullets are pointing inward or outwards. If the bullets are inwards, then it means that the digging spot is right exactly on that spot itself. However, if the bullets are pointing outwards, then it means that that is not the digging spot, but somewhere nearby. On some cases, ammunitions were also used by the Japanese Imperial Army as markers, by embedding them on surfaces of old rocks and trees. It is actually a lot more complicated to interpret such markers, especially when there are other signs around that are involved. In relation to ammunitions, there are also mortar bombs, which were very common artillery weapons used during the Second World War. The Japanese Imperial Army also used them as markers, the same way as their ammunitions. The only difference is that these vintage mortar bombs can still be active and highly dangerous when disturbed. Anyway, if you have any questions with regards to this topic, then feel free to ask them on the comment form below. Moreover, have you enjoyed watching this video? If your answer is yes, and you are new to my channel, then you may want to subscribe and hit the like button. You are also free to share to your friends, or to someone who may find it helpful. If you prefer a reading material about treasure hunting, then I recommend visiting my blogging website at treasurehunt.club. Thank you very much for watching, and happy treasure hunting!